amount of carbon dioxide they're belching out is greatly increased lately. And by the way, the United States is no longer the major country that adds CO2 to the atmosphere. Just recently, China surpassed us. They are the major, they put more CO2 in the atmosphere than do us now. I told you a little bit about those computer climate models. Unfortunately, I've worked with models for 35 years weather forecasting. And I learned a lot. First of all, they after about a couple days, their accuracy goes down. They're getting better. They're getting better over the years, but after about 5 or 6 days, they're not very good anymore. Anyway, they don't accurately represent temperature increase with a doubling of CO2. But the trouble is, the politicians, Al Gore, and the alarmists take those computer models literally, as if they're perfect. And they're not. They're far from perfect. There's lots of problems in those computer models. Like I told you, there's about 15 of them that are run around the world, and they vary anywhere from a 3 degree to 11 degree Fahrenheit warming from a doubling of carbon dioxide. But nature's run its own experiment. We've essentially increased carbon dioxide 60%. And if natural processes cause half the global warming, that means man is only causing 0.6 degrees Fahrenheit of warming. And for a 60% increase at 0.6 degrees Fahrenheit, a doubling should cause only a 1 degree Fahrenheit warming. So even the lowest model is 3 times too high. That's because carbon dioxide is too sensitive in the models. They don't have it correct. Way too sensitive and can't be trusted. In fact, these models are so complicated, the physics, each variable interacts with all the other variables. And it's not a linear, it's not usually a nonlinear. I'll spend the next hour explaining how this works in the models. You know. It's very complicated, and because they have to estimate some variables, it adds more error to the model, you see. They're very imperfect. In fact, clouds constitute the largest single source of uncertainty in climate predictions. They can't get clouds down right. And they can't get the reflectivity of the snow down right either, because it changes each day because of the condition of the snow. They don't have this correct. They don't have solar and infrared radiation effects correct either. There's lots of errors in these models. You know, I think there's some hidden agendas in this, and I'm going to let those that are interested in that think about this more. This was a quote from the Politically Incorrect Guide to Global Warming. He says in the preface, "It is the perfect storm of demons and perils and the ideal scare campaign for those who would establish global governance," which is a quote from Jacques Chirac, if I pronounced it right, words in praise of the Kyoto Protocol, the ex-head of France. "With strict control over corporate actions and individual behavior." Global governance? They can manufacture a huge crisis that Gore says is worse than anything that's ever happened, you know. And if people believe them, you know, this idea of global governance might be something to reckon in the future. Anyway, those people are prophecy buffs. I'll let you think about that and go on. Ninth, there is a strong bias toward the harm of global warming. You always hear the harms. There was a heat wave in Europe that killed a huge amount of people. You never hear about the cold wave that froze a lot more people to death. You know, you don't hear those things. They ignore the positive benefits. In fact, in Montana, we can use some global warming. We have a committee that meets to try to get it. Anyway, seriously, some positive benefits are more people actually die of the cold than the heat. You know that? So if we have global warming, we're going to save more lives. CO2 enhances plant growth. You'll have Arctic shipping. which will save a lot of money. Also, you'll have more agriculture further north, like in Canada. Longer growing season. So there's a lot of benefits to global warming. In fact, if you want to see some of the effects of global cooling, there's some, I think, was it PBS or the Discovery Channel or something, has some shows they just had on the Little Ice Age, and also the Year Without a Summer, which is part of the Little Ice Age. And they show you all the harms, storminess that caused the Little Ice Age. They blame millions of deaths on the Little Ice Age. The little cooling, maybe about 0.6 of a degree centigrade, about a degree Fahrenheit, during the Little Ice Age. All the glaciers in the world advanced. They even covered up some little towns around the Swiss Alps, by the way. It caused a lot of disaster. In fact, I think they blame the potato famine in Ireland on the Little Ice Age. Anyway, if you want to find out what global cooling does, see those DVDs. Lomborg says in Cool It, this is a man that uses a huge amount of statistics in what he does. In Europe as a whole, about 200,000 people die from excess heat each year. That's a huge amount. However, 1.5 million Europeans die annually from excess cold. That is more than 7 times the total number of heat deaths. That's an incredible amount. I didn't realize that climate was such a, or weather was such a big factor in Europe. But anyway, if you cause global warming, we're going to save lives. Do you hear? When was the last time you heard that in your local newspaper? I mean, you haven't. So in summary, the global temperature rise is only 1.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Even on that basis alone, it's not enough to panic. I believe natural processes account for about half of it, at least half. So that means man's only